Hi there, David here, and in this video I'll be breaking down a redesign I did of the scrap gun from the video game Overwatch 2. So in this video I won't actually be going over individual layers and how I design those layers, but what I will do is show you all the layers and all the sounds that I did use, how I layered them, processed them, and mixed it all together to create the final redesign that I did. So if you're interested in seeing that, this is going to be the video for you. Before we jump into it though, if you're new here, I have a gift for you. It is my Sound Designer Starter Pack. It's a sound pack I put together of over 900 sounds that you can use in your commercial or personal projects. So if you want to grab that, links will be in the description below. All right, let's get into our project. All right, so here we are inside of Reaper, and as usual, the way I'd like to start this is to play you the game audio, the original audio from the game. So we have a reference to fall back on to have a listen to, and then we'll go into the redesign, and then we'll start breaking it down layer by layer, processing, and all that fun stuff. So let's have a listen to the original game audio. All right, and now let's have a listen to the redesign. All right, so there you go. That is the redesign. So let's get into this. Let's start right at the beginning with the reload sounds here. Let's play these all together, and then we'll start breaking it down by layer. So this is the reload sound at the beginning here. So one more time all together. All right, so let's have a listen to the layers that I have here. So I think what I started off with here were the crank sound. So you can hear in the original, there's like this cranking sound as right before you get into the shooting part, where you get this sound. So that's what I wanted to start with to emulate here. So I have two of these. So here's the first one. All right, so if we take the processing off of here, okay, and that is a crank. That's something I recorded. I don't exactly remember what I recorded. Must have been some sort of maybe toy or something around my house. But what I did was I added manipulator on here, just brought it down by 4. So the formant is down by 4, sounds like this. And then recenter. Here you can see I kind of narrowed it in a little bit at 80%, and then I put it to the right. Right after that, I did a similar thing, but this was a different sound. So this was a design gadget sound that I created. If you want to see a video about it, maybe I'll make a video about it, though a lot of these were kind of experimental things that I recorded, and I tried to blend together, so I don't exactly remember how I made these specific sounds, but yeah, there's just a bunch of metal sounds that I recorded around my house and things like that. So sounds like this with nothing on it. But basically what I wanted is I wanted the crank, and then I also wanted a similar thing, like a similar cranking sound, but with more metallic elements in it. So that's why I used this down here. And first thing I did, again, same thing as before, I just added recenter here just to position it in the stereo field. And then I added some uber loud here to push up some of the highs. So without it, it sounds like this. Then with it, all right, it's just a bit more bright, a bit more in your face. So together with these two now, that's the sound. All right, so before we got into this, there's this is like a little detail thing, but you can hear kind of like the chains as the player's about to like reload and put all the metal stuff into the gun here. Right, so this is something you also hear in the original if we play it here. Like there's a bit of like dangling chain or something like that. So that's what I was going for here. This is a chain that I recorded at my house that I had dropped on the floor. Sounds like that. So that was that one. This layer was nothing here. Here, let's have a listen to this one here. Again, this is another gadget sound. And this is just to go with like the player smacking all the metal parts into the gun here. So that's more of like a higher layer. I think here I had a lower layer. Sounds like this. And again, I don't exactly remember how I created these sounds, but again, just recording different like metallic things around my house and blending it together using NVK Create, and then I kind of exported it, and now I kind of dropped it in here. So I had my lower sound, my higher frequency sound and my lower frequency sound here together. So layered, they sound like this. Pretty good. And then I had this one here. And this was just an additional sound, because without it, I felt like there was something missing, like right before we got into the shot. So if you listen, there's kind of like this pause in the animation, and I felt like it should kind of keep going. So it's not a necessary item here, but I added this in as an extra transition element right before the shooting starts. So we already had our higher frequency crank stuff up here, and this is our lower frequency crank stuff. And the way that I did this is I had metal chains, and I was basically, I think I was pulling it over like wood. So I just put the chain on top of wood, and then I started pulling it over the piece of wood, and that's how I got this like metal sound. So if I take everything off, I'll play you the original sound and what it sounds like. So this is the original sound here. Right, so it's just chains being pulled over a large piece of wood. And then after that, it's just a matter of pitching it down a little bit. So I have the format down 6. Add a neutron here just to cut some of the highs. I really wanted this to be a lower element, like a lower frequency element. After that, sub. I'm really not doing very much here. I think this presser is doing it a little bit as well. Just a little bit, bringing out some movement in the frequencies. It's really not doing much. Pretty subtle. And then after that, I just brought up the clipper here in uber loud. Just make it a little bit louder, and then positioning it here. And that's it. So now with all of these together, this is what we have. All right, so that is the load sound right at the beginning here. And after that, we go into our shots. So the shots are only made up of 3 layers, and I think you'll see that they're pretty simple in terms of like what I did or what I used. So let's go into this. Well, yeah, let's take here. Let's take these. No, I'm gonna keep on the master effects here, but let's look at this first layer here. Let's listen to it just as is, and then I'm gonna start taking stuff off. As you can hear, you get that very machine gun effect because I didn't bother, I didn't put in any like LKC variator to change any of the pitch or rate or anything really. I kind of just put it in as is. And what's kind of making it kind of clanky and offbeat is that I was a little bit off when I put my markers for like where the shots were going to be. I wasn't very mathematical with it. They're kind of like you can see here, there's the big gap here, a smaller gap here, bigger gap here, even bigger gap here, small, big. So I wasn't very precise in where I was putting the shot. So they kind of make it feel like the gun is kind of like broken, which makes sense for this kind of weapon. It just worked well. So I was not trying to be precise at all with how I was positioning the shots. And so that worked out for that. And basically all this shot is, by the way, for this, in terms of like samples, it's just an impact sound that I created, again, using metal stuff. And I think I had some design like kicks and stuff like that I put together. I don't exactly remember how I made the sound. I just had it in my folder, so I dragged it and dropped it in here. It kind of worked. Did a bit of processing, so let's have a look here. So with nothing on, sounds like this. Right, it's pretty much similar. Cut out a bit of the mids around 400, which is where else usually there's a bit of moneyness, so that cleans it up a little. Right, added some gain, this just to balance it with the other layers, and then transient shaper to add a bit of attack. Right, so it just makes it a little bit punchier. Right, and that is the sound here. That's that one layer. After that, we had the second layer here. Sounds like this. Right, again, this is a machine sound that I had designed. I think it sounds like this if I play it here. And this was done using, again, same thing as I had before. I don't exactly remember specifically. I think I just had a bunch of metal clicks and impact sounds that I kind of put together. And then using MK Create, I put it together. And then that's it. I kind of exported it and dragged it into here. So that's how this sound was made. Put it into here. Did a bit of processing. So if we have a listen without anything on, it's good. I felt like it was a little bit bright, especially with the other layer. So if we listen to it together, like it just felt a little too bright to me, too bright to my ear. So I wanted to bring it down a little bit. So that's what this EQ here is doing. I'm cutting out some highs here at around 11K. And then I also had a peak, like a frequency peaking out at around 2K. So I brought those down a little bit. So to me, it felt a little bit darker, a little more, not as harsh to my ears. So that's what that is doing there. And then here, recenter. What I was doing with recenter here was a little bit different because if we listen to the 2 sound files, so normally like recenter, I use to bring in the width and then position the sound exactly where I want in the stereo field. But for this instance, I was kind of using it as the size of the gun. So if we take this off and we listen to the sound, it feels kind of wide. It makes the gun feel a little bit bigger. And if I put this back on, you can start to control the sound of the gun. So let's have a listen to see if you can hear what I mean. So this makes the gun feel kind of really small and really kind of centered in front of you. And then as you make it more wide, it kind of feels a little bit bigger because it's filling out the stereo field. So that's what I was doing with this. I was kind of trying to find the sweet spot where it wasn't so like so mono and centered and felt small, and not too wide where it kind of felt unnatural. So I was kind of playing around with that. So that's what I was doing here. All right, so now we had these two layers here. Sounds like this. And I had a bit of bus processing on here. So one is track spacer, and track spacer is, I'm using this to cut out any of the lows from base layer 3, which we haven't looked at just yet. But that's what that is doing on here. And then finally we had this EQ, which is not even doing anything. So that, I don't know why that's on there. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, so those are the two layers, and those are the main layers. And now the third layer was this kind of lower frequency layer, and it sounds like this. And the way that I did this is I had recorded a toy like drum. I think it was a wooden drum thing that I had, and I laid out like these metal chains on the floor at my house, and then I kind of rolled the drum on top of it. And if I can play it for you, you'll have an idea of what it sounded like. So this is what it sounded like. Right, so I'm rolling this drum on. I don't remember if it's on top of the chain or the chain on top of the drum. Anyways, but it's metal chains with the drum that I kind of was rolling around, and this is the kind of sound that I was able to get. So my idea with this is I really wanted this to be a kind of a sub layer, yeah, a lower frequency layer, especially with all the mechanical stuff going around. I kind of wanted to feel like it was a heavier portion of that. So yeah, let's have a look at how I designed this. So first thing is I just brought down the format because I knew I was going to want it to be a bit lower, lower frequency and bigger sound. So it sounds like this now. That's good. And then added some subsynth. It's really subtle. It's more like around this area here where it starts to kind of poke out. Then neutron here just to boost some of the bass, cut out the highs. Right, and then some uber loud. Again, really feeling that grinding sound, that lower frequency, like sound of something being pulled over something or rubbing against like metal, rubbing on wood or something like that. Again, and then here, just making it louder with uber loud. After that, it was just a matter of like a bit of detail work, like balancing out the frequencies, especially with the other layers. So this is something I came back to like a day or two after I designed this. I came back and I still felt like it wasn't quite well balanced. So I cut out some of the lows and I had a peak here or a dip here for the lower. Yeah, so those lower frequencies around like whatever this is, around 72, I felt like it was poking out a little bit too much. So yeah, just dipping those. And then after that, I added Enforcer just to add a bit more punch, but I don't know if this is really doing much. It's adding a little bit specifically for the transient. So like every time there's a transient, you add a bit more punch. So it's not so much of a dragging sound or like a scratching sound. I still want it to be kind of mechanical and rhythmic. So that's what Enforcer here is doing. It's kind of adding a bit more emphasis on the rhythm of this file here, right? So once I had that, it's pretty good. I was happy with it. It sounds like this. And that's like if you play it together, I think that sounds pretty good. It's very subtle. Like you can barely even hear it in there. I could probably brought up the volume a little bit. But then after that, the only thing I did add here was snap heap. And what I'm doing here is I'm using this MIDI file here to trigger snap heap. So this is actually not playing anything. There's no audio or anything coming from here. I'm just using the MIDI to trigger snap heap in here. The audio follower, as you can see here, I'm using an external value so that it's picking up the MIDI that I'm triggering in here, and then it's using that as the audio follower. So it's actually playing something. I had like a kick playing on here in Faceplant. Yeah, sorry. So I had a kick playing on here in Faceplant, but it's not going out to the masters. You can't actually hear it, as you can see here. So I'm just sending this signal into here so that it affects the gain of this sound file here. So let's just see if you can hear what I mean. So this is it without it. Let's take everything off. And then with it on, sounds like this. So again, I'm just emphasizing a bit more of the rhythm. That's kind of what I wanted to do, is make it more rhythmic. Because if not, it kind of felt like disconnected from the other shots. Like you had this kind of dragging sound, but then the other shots were kind of more rhythmic. So I still want it to be rhythmic, so that's why I added that in there. So after that, that's pretty much it. Bit of a dip at 400, and that's it. So with that, now we have these 3 files here. And if we can hear what this specific one is doing here, I can probably bring up the volume a little bit. Right, so it's kind of subtle. It is there. You can hear it. It's more felt than heard, I think, but it still works together with the other shot. So that was it. So with that, then those were the main shots, and that was it. The only other shot that I added here at the end was this one here, because this was to signify like the last shot being shot, and like it was the end of the round. Because if not, it kind of felt like awkward ending. Like it just didn't sound right. So if we take it off here, it's okay, but then with it on, it felt like more final, like the round was done. Right, it's like you have this final or this final impact sound to say that the round is done. So this is just a design impact that I dragged and dropped into here with a bit of recenter just to position it and make it fit in the in this stereo field. That's it. So after that, it was a matter of you doing the ejecting sequence here, what I call the ejecting sequence, where they're basically reloading. So sounded like this altogether. All right, so again, I had some similar sounds that I used for the reload. So let's have a listen to this one. So this is a mech sound that I designed. If you want to see videos about it, I did make some videos about me creating like mech sound effects or reload sound effects from scratch. So I'll put that in the cards above if you're interested. But yeah, this is from one of my sound packs, and I just dragged it and dropped it in here. As you can see, no processing, no nothing. So that's good. Here I had another sound. Again, this is another one that I created with NVK Create with different metal sounds that I scraped and like snapped together and stuff like that. Kind of layered it together, processed them, and this is it here. I just dragged it and dropped it in here. I'm using gain to balance the sound, just my preference here. That's it. So together, right? So that's what we have so far. All right, down here we have this. This is more for the sound of like the metal chain here that's kind of swinging. Right, it's a very small detail, but it's there, so I put it in there. And here I have something similar, I think. Yeah, I think it's just something similar. Just some more like mechanical sounds, just like small details, just to show that the gun is still kind of moving. There's still moving parts to it and stuff like that. And then I have this here. So this sound was, I put it in here because I wanted something to be more tonal. So without it, we have this, which sounds okay. Like it sounds good. With it just felt like it was a bit more tonal. It's very minor detail. I think it fills out the sound a little bit more, maybe fills out the frequency more. Maybe that's why it sounds a little bit better to my ears. I'm not too sure. Not necessarily needed in there. Maybe this could be like a variation layer where it's like it can be or cannot be in there. But yeah, that was it for the eject here. So like this. And that's it. So now with all of these sounds, let's have a listen back to the beginning here. See if you can pick out everything that we talked about, all the layers and everything. So let's have a listen. All right, so I hope you found this redesign useful and valuable, and just seeing my work process and how I put things together. If you have any questions, of course, please feel free to leave them down in the description below. I always do my best to answer them and to respond to everyone who does leave a message, so do that. And also just a reminder to grab that free sound pack, that my Sound Designer starter pack. Link is in the description. All right, so that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.